In Mrs. Harrington's advanced placement physics class at Westbrook High, everyone knew their place. The jocks sat in the back, the chatty popular kids claimed the middle rows, and then there was Edwin Chen, keeper of the front row, guardian of perfect attendance, and the undisputed master of raising his hand precisely 3/4 of the way up. I sat in the dreaded second row, close enough to see Edwin's meticulous notes, but far enough from Mrs. Harrington's radar to occasionally check my phone. From this perfect vantage point, I witnessed what would become the most legendary moment in Westbrook High's recent history. Edwin was a walking paradox. Despite his oversized glasses and carefully ironed button-downs, there was something unknowable about him. While the rest of us complained about pop quizzes, Edwin seemed to exist in a different dimension, one where derivatives were fascinating and Newton's laws were casual dinner conversation. That Tuesday began like any other. Mrs. Harrington droned on about kinetic energy, while half the class fought to keep their eyes open after lunch. I was doodling a rather unflattering caricature of our principal when Mrs. Harrington suddenly called out, "Mr. Chen, could you explain the relationship between mass and acceleration in this equation?" Edwin's posture straightened, his pencil carefully placed at the top of his notebook. But before he could utter a single word, Mrs. Harrington waved her hand dismissively. "Actually, never mind. I'm sure you know the correct answer anyway," she said with a tired sigh, turning back to the whiteboard. The room tensed with second-hand embarrassment. Even the half-asleep football players in the back row cringed. Mrs. Harrington had been teaching for 27 years and had apparently reached the point where calling on Edwin had become a mere formality. What happened next occurred in the span of perhaps 3 seconds, but it played out in my mind like a slow-motion scene from an action movie. The moment Mrs. Harrington's back was fully turned, Edwin's arm moved with startling precision. His yellow number 2 pencil, the same one he'd been taking notes with moments before, flew from his hand in a perfect upward arc, spinning like a helicopter blade until it embedded itself point first into the soft ceiling tile above. My jaw dropped. Megan Winters, who sat beside me, made a choking sound. The pencil quivered for a moment, then went still, its eraser end pointing accusingly downward. By the time Mrs. Harrington turned around, Edwin was already hunched over his notebook, writing with his backup pen. Because of course Edwin had a backup pen. His face betrayed nothing, not a hint of a smile, not even a flicker of acknowledgement of what he'd just done. Mrs. Harrington continued her lecture, completely oblivious to the yellow pencil now protruding from her classroom ceiling, or the silent chaos unfolding before her. Jason Miller, the basketball team captain, was the first to break. A small snort escaped him, which he quickly disguised as a cough. This triggered a chain reaction. Sarah Thompson bit her lips so hard I could see the white pressure marks. Even stoic Zach Williams had tears forming in his eyes from the effort of containing his laughter. The tension in the room was unbearable. It was like we'd all agreed to participate in some bizarre social experiment testing the limits of human composure. Every few seconds, someone's eyes would drift upward to the pencil, then to Edwin's perfectly composed face, and another suppressed giggle would threaten to break the dam. "Is there something amusing about centripetal force that I'm unaware of?" Mrs. Harrington asked, looking puzzled as she noticed the strange expressions on our faces. No one dared answer. No one dared look up. The answer to her question was literally hanging over our heads, and somehow, that made everything infinitely funnier. Mrs. Harrington's confusion only intensified the collective hysteria building in the classroom. When she turned back to the whiteboard, I caught Tyler from the swim team silently pointing at the ceiling, mouthing, "Oh my God," to his neighbor. Kira Jenkins had her sweater pulled up over her mouth, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. "Let's continue with our discussion of force vectors," Mrs. Harrington said, completely unaware of the time bomb ticking above her. Meanwhile, Edwin maintained his perfect composure, taking notes as if he hadn't just executed the most shocking act of classroom rebellion any of us had ever witnessed. Not once did he look up at his handiwork or acknowledge the silent chaos erupting around him. This monk-like serenity only made everything more hilarious. The first audible giggle came from Lindsay Peters in the third row. She tried to disguise it as a cough, but it was too late. Mrs. Harrington turned around, eyebrows raised. Is there something you'd like to share with the class, Ms. Peters? No, ma'am, Lindsay squeaked, her face turning crimson. Then perhaps we can continue without interruption? Mrs. Harrington's irritation was the final catalyst. Like a pressure cooker without a release valve, the room was about to explode. Alex Thompson accidentally let out a snort while trying to hold his breath. This triggered a small cascade of giggles from the back row. What is going on today? Mrs. Harrington demanded, her hands on her hips. I fail to see what's so amusing about gravitational potential energy. The irony of her statement, given the potential energy stored in the pencil above, was too much. Even I couldn't contain a smile anymore. Mrs. Harrington sighed dramatically and turned back to the board, determined to power through whatever strange mood had overtaken her students. As I was saying, when calculating the force required to, that's when it happened. Maybe it was the vibration from the air conditioning kicking on, or perhaps the ceiling tile had simply had enough of Edwin's pencil disrupting its peaceful existence. Whatever the cause, the pencil chose that exact moment to dislodge itself. It fell in a perfect straight line, obeying the very laws of physics Mrs. Harrington had been teaching us, and landed with an audible tap directly next to Edwin's notebook. Mrs. Harrington spun around at the sound, just in time to witness the aftermath of the pencil's descent and the complete breakdown of her classroom's discipline. The dam broke. 27 students simultaneously lost all control. Laughter erupted like a volcano that had been dormant for centuries. Dylan Harris actually fell out of his chair. Megan Winters had tears streaming down her face. Even the perpetually bored Amber Wilson was doubled over, gasping for air between fits of laughter. In the midst of this chaos, Edwin calmly picked up his pencil, inspected its tip, and resumed taking notes. Mrs. Harrington stood frozen, utterly bewildered by the collective meltdown of her usually manageable physics class. "What on earth is happening?" she demanded, her voice barely audible over the howling laughter. No one could explain. No one could even speak. And remarkably, no one ratted out Edwin. That day became legendary at Westbrook High. The pencil incident, as it came to be known, was recounted in whispers in the cafeteria, embellished in retelling at parties, and immortalized in that year's unauthorized section of the yearbook. As for Edwin, nothing changed. He remained the quiet, brilliant student in the front row. But occasionally, when Mrs. Harrington turned her back, I'd catch the faintest hint of a smile on his face as he glanced up at the ceiling, the only visible evidence that beneath his perfectly composed exterior lived a silent rebel who had, for one glorious moment, brought an entire classroom to its knees with nothing more than a well-aimed pencil and impeccable timing. Sometimes I wonder if that's what Edwin had been planning all semester, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to shatter his own stereotype. Or perhaps it was a spontaneous act of brilliance. Either way, it taught me something no physics equation could. You never truly know what's going on in someone else's mind, especially the quiet ones.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.